Hello all, A Knife's Tale here, and I have a bit of a weakness for the Les George VEC pattern. Because that's what we're looking at today. And yes, there's basically 3 of them here. This one is made by ProTech and has a few flares of its own. This one will be returning for its own video. But, as you can see, I definitely enjoy the pattern. This knife, I literally slipped off that. That's the one thing I don't like. It's not that I don't like it. I just wish that these thumb studs were a tiny hair further up. And personally, I think you could get them without them hitting anything, just a few millimeters. Because you kind of, when you go in here with the swoop, you kind of land pushing right on the edge of it. So sometimes you fall off like that. Of course, it is pretty darn easy to not do. Even more so when there's a detent. It's more a problem only with the button lock versions. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a USA-made knife. We're looking at titanium handles. In this case, this has the morph milling pattern. This one is just flat. We're looking at Magna Cut and Damascus. Both. Oh, this has been hand ground by Les George. I know that. I'm pretty sure this is. He does a lot of the finishing on his knives. But either way, it's all USA made and it's well heat treated. There's going to be no problems with the steel. I did actually have a little bit of a problem with this one. I got this from a vendor after it was first displayed at a blade show. And there was a tiny bit of rust developing on this very thin hollow grind. I contacted Les George, sent it into him, and he reground the whole thing. It is even thinner. And the tiny bit of rust that was starting to develop is completely gone, and it has not come back since. I've also kept it oiled, so I think the blade show was probably an Atlanta blade show, so you got coastal air and lots of people touching it and stuff. Yeah, is what it is. But these are titanium, USA made VECPs by Les George. Let us take a quick look at specs, and the specs on these knives are... I'll use this one since this is more likely one that you're going to be encountering. It has a 3.5-inch blade. It is 8 3/8 overall, and the handle length is 4 7/8-ish. Let us make a quick comparison. Everything is in my way, so I'm not used to dealing with having 2 knives at the same time out, so everywhere I put it, it seems to want to get in the way. Civivi Elementum for the small, Civivi Conspirator for the full-size comparison. And as you can see, the Les George is bigger than both. It is only a tiny bit bigger on that blade length. Maybe just that hair over 3.5 inches. Maybe. Or the Civivi Conspirator is a bit on the shorter end of that. I don't know. But the handle is where you're getting most of that length. And it's mostly just this extra bit that's stuck on there for the lanyard hole. Really. This is a reasonably tall knife. It is taller than the Conspirator in the open and closed positions. It is not, however, a particularly thick knife where it is a little bit thinner than the Conspirator. But decent size, Definitely full size. Not hard to carry, but it's not the most svelte knife, let's call it. I should also mention that these scales here are not milled. Oh, wait, yes they are. That didn't look milled. They are milled for a weight reduction. What do you know? 5.24 ounces. Yeah, not the lightest of knives in existence. 5.18, pretty consistent. These are not heavy compared to what I carry, but maybe they're approaching heavy for some people and what they like to carry. I don't mind it. Especially because, well, I like these knives. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler for later, but let's take a look at the actual thicknesses of these things. I'm going to use the flat one for the handle thickness. Yeah, it's just under ½ an inch, so yeah, it is thinner than the Conspirator. Blade stock, however, is not. It's 150 thousandths. It's a thick blade stock. Though it really only applies up here at the very peak. It starts dropping immediately, so even down here, where it's at its thickest. Oh no. Okay, so it stays 150 pretty much until you get to the grind. The primary grind. What is not thick, however, is behind the edge. This one, the Damascus one, hollow ground, is... I mean, a hand ground is hollow ground, and it is, yeah, 11 or 12 thousandths behind the edge. It's pretty thin behind the edge. The standard ones that you're going to be getting are flat ground and will not be that thin. So, important to note. Oop, pop right off there. That said, no, that's a little bit too much. 15 thousandths is still pretty good drop, considering 150 thousandths on the blade stock thickness. This thing drops a lot. It's not that thick behind the edge. It slices really well, especially that one. So even though they're kind of bigger, heavier duty, harder use, thicker looking knives, they're performers. I want to make that clear. They are performers. They're really nice. Speaking of performance, no, it's a T20, I believe, on the T20. Yes, the pivot is T20 on both of these knives, and they are D-shaped captured pivots, which is wonderful. And T8 on the body screws. So great sized hardware, big chunky hardware for the pivot, big solid screws for the body, and very simple construction. It's just, you got two, and also what you have to notice is, focus, the screws are not double-headed. They thread all the way through the titanium. That is the bottom of the screw that you're looking at. So it's just one long screw going through everything. So it is literally 3 screws that you have to deal with on this knife. The pocket clip has its own 3 screws for some reason. I don't really know why it has that much on it. They both do. And, well, this one's not tapped for left-hand carry, but this one is, and that's a good thing, because the button is, in fact, and I just hit that on that, the button is, in fact, pretty ambidextrous on this knife, and hopefully I did not just mess with my edge. No, I did not. Which is wonderful. Okay, as I said, the deployment on this, the button lock is a bit light. It's a bit spongy. It's not got a great detent. I mean, you're not really working with a detent, but the plunge lock is pretty light on this thing. You can, in fact, I just did it. Okay. There we go. Yeah, you can get it to pop out. It's not particularly heavy. I kind of wish it was a bit stronger. That said, it still works and it's pretty darn satisfying. What's more satisfying is the detent on that. That is a nice detent. Also, it should be noted that these knives, you can't see it in there because, well, you can see them, but they are running on phosphor bronze. These are not washer knives. That said, that's a shake shot, and that's a drop shot. It's a button lock, but it is ridiculously smooth. I mean, this thing is just... And it came that way. This has not had to break in at all. That is... It has insane action. It is a truly interesting thing. The button is big, chunky. It's got a little bit of grit, like you can feel the spring... Or not the spring. You can feel like the titanium on the titanium, or whatever materials used in the button, sort of working against each other a little bit. And I wish it was a little bit stronger, but it's not actually that weak either. Like this, I have spine whacked this thing. This thing is not going anywhere. It just doesn't have a very large amount of retention, but that's a button lock thing. So despite that, I can still do the whole reverse flick and everything like that. So it works. It works, but I wish it was a little bit stronger, but this one is extremely satisfying. In fact, this one is actually quite... It's hard to do under the camera, especially while I'm trying not to hit the knife below it. Yeah, there we go. This knife is quite satisfying. It's not overly strong, but it is strong enough that it's satisfying. They both are satisfying, but in different ways. Also, I want to note that this button is almost completely flush when it's open. And as you can see, the button on this one has sort of a housing over here. It sticks out. It's interesting. It's cool. Honestly, I thought it was going to bother me. It doesn't. And it feels like something I kind of, when I'm holding the knife, I kind of put my finger up against it. And it provides even more traction, which is nice. It's not a problem. It's super, super smooth down, super comfortable. But again, I want to emphasize, this is phosphor bronze washers, people. Yeah, it's just got a little bit light detent. I feel like I missed something on the specs. I don't think I did. Okay, stop pin. Stop pin on both of these knives is, especially the button lock, completely out of the way. The edge is down here, hitting the plunge. On this one, yes, the stop pin is behind the edge. You can kind of see it. There we go. I gotta get a light like put directly behind me for these kinds of moments. But it also hits on this thick part of the thing, or part of the knife down here. You can see the oil mark right there. So it is far enough away that I would have no problem or no concern cutting in my own choil, should I need it. And I will likely need it. This one is not giving me a whole lot of life on the choil. And neither is this one. The plunge grind unfortunately does come to the edge. I wish that was a little bit better. But these are hand-finished, very small batch. Everyone goes through his bench, Les George's bench as far as I know, in the US. So yeah, you're looking at almost mid-tech kind of range. These kind of are mid-techs. You kind of got to give a little bit of leeway there. Right? You finish what you can and you hit what you can. You just got to realize that, yes, you're going to have to cut in the choil. No, it's not going to be hard whatsoever. So. Oh, clip Clip's the only thing I don't particularly love on these knives. I'm thinking about getting an aftermarket clip for them, honestly. The clip is not uncomfortable. You barely feel it. In fact, you basically don't feel it. I mean, if I'm really looking for it, I can kind of tell that there's a little bit of edge here and here. But for all intents and purposes, this clip disappears in the hand. This one I feel it a little bit more. I don't know why. Maybe because the lock bar is moving me over. Yeah, that's what it is. Because the lock bar is over, this part of the clip stands up a little bit more to where my hand actually engages on the knife. So you do feel the clip a little bit more in this, but it is ultra comfortable. I just don't like the look of the clip. It is titanium. It's a continuous rise. It's got quite a good bit of retention on it, honestly. It probably could be a little bit taller. Probably could be a little bit folded over from the end, honestly. But the clip, it works. I just think it doesn't quite fit the aesthetic. Again, though, mid-tech, he probably does these clips in his shop. It is what it is. And that's kind of the way that works. So, performance, they're wonderful. Ergos, they're pretty darn wonderful. Yeah, you're a little bit far away. Jesus. Sometimes I forget how different that one is compared to this one on the detent. You're a little bit far away from the edge, but not too bad. I could choke up here and be relatively confident, but it's not that comfortable. But there's more than enough room to get a full four-finger grip. There is the lanyard hole that extends the handle unnecessarily, in my opinion. And it is kind of being prioritized over the clip. I don't like to see that, but this was never meant to be a deep carry clip in the first place, so meh. There's a lock bar stabilizer in there, as you can see underneath that clip. And there is, in fact, you can kind of see it in there, a lock face for, I think that's a lock face. No, it is not. It is titanium. In this case, it is titanium directly on the Damascus. That's where the detent ball is. This one, of course, you don't have a lock face in that sense. What's funny is, I thought this knife was actually going to be heavier. This one's only milled out on one side, but I guess the extra pieces of the button lock equal out the weight? I don't know. Just want to mention that. Found that interesting. I'm beating around the bush. Yeah, you see, going from one to the other is bizarre. It does feel bizarre, because this is much, much heavier. And you really... This one feels good. This one feels like the stop pin, or the thumb studs need to be up just a tiny bit. But that action... Ooh, that action. So, I love these things. I love the pattern. I love the USA made mid-techs. I had a good experience with Les George. He sent it in. He said, "Oh, that's not good. Send it in to me. I'll regrind the dang thing." I think it was $50 or something like that. Maybe 100 now or something. Who knows? They perform great. They're heat treated well. They have a cool kind of look to them. Something about them I like. And I don't know if it's the pattern, but this knife looks taller in person than this one. I don't think it actually is, which is interesting. Just looking at it here. So, are these recommendable? Yes. But you have to know what you're getting into. You have to want a USA-made mid-tech kind of hand-finished knife. They're extremely good, and I like this milling pattern. But you're paying for it. These are not cheap. Both of these are, what, $650 knives? You can get the basic frame lock for a cheaper price with the regular steel. if you can find them. They're hard to find. They're extremely small batch, and they go fast because they are well liked. And they're just all around good knives. It's a good design. Damn you! Switching back and forth. I'll figure it out eventually. Drop point. Even though the jimping's big and doesn't offer a ton of, it does offer some retention, and it offers a lot of good indexing point. You know where you are, you know where you sit. And these things are well done, well made, well finished, and a good example of what you start to see with USA mid-techs. Or mid-techs in general, honestly. So, I wouldn't, unless you absolutely love this design, I wouldn't go out of my way to hunt one of these down if you don't really want it, because you're going to pay for it. It is more expensive than what you can get for these materials on elsewhere. So value is more subjective in this case. I like it. I love this knife. I didn't screw it up that time. Ha ha ha. Yeah. I think these are great knives. They're cool knives. They're USA made, and they're good looking, especially this Damascus pattern. Ooh, yeah. And yes, if you're wondering, the etched parts are sort of a flat gray, but the rest of it is completely reflective. It looks great. And they're pretty great. But they're expensive. So I'm not going to recommend just everybody try and go out and get one. But if you're in that tier and you want something USA made that's interesting and good, these are it. But they're not for most people. Though I will say that on phosphor bronze is pretty impressive action. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here to love with these. I will say the only thing I don't love about this is that where the plunge lock actually engages with the blade in the closed position is exposed when it's open. I don't love that. Is it a big deal? No. Could potentially material get caught in there? Yes. I don't think it'll be a problem, especially considering it's open at the bottom and you can just sort of blow it out, but it is something to take note of. It's the only thing I don't like about these knives. That and maybe the clip. Overall, I'm quite happy to have these in my collection, though, and hopefully you've enjoyed seeing them. Yeah. I'm a bit more chilled today, I think. Just sort of slowly going down the list of things and trying to come up with things to say. Thanks for watching if you stuck around now through my nonsense. What are your thoughts on USA made mid-techs? Do you see the value in them? Do you appreciate the hand finishing elements enough to want to spend that extra bit of money on them? I do. I like them. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.